The Torah refers to the holiday of Pesach as Chag HaMatzos. It's called the holiday of matzahs, and we colloquially call the holiday of Passover, we call it Pesach. So why is it that we call it Pesach and the Torah calls it Chag HaMatzos? So the Kedushas Halevi, Rav Levi Mibarditchev, gives a beautiful explanation, but he points out that Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people, are always looking for good things to say about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always looking at good things to say about the Jews, like the Gemara in Brachas, that God has His own pair of tefillin, and we have our tefillin. Our tefillin, we praise God. In God's tefillin, He praise us. So that's what the Kedushas Halevi says. Chag HaMatzos shows the Jews. Matzah represents Amunah, the Jews going out in haste, going into a midbar, into a desert, no stores, no nothing. It shows their Amunah, their faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we call it Pesach because Pesach, we're thanking God on the tremendous miracles that He passed over us. He killed the Makos Bechoros, He killed the firstborn Egyptians and not the firstborn Jews. So we call it Pesach because we're praising God, and He calls it Chag HaMatzos. He's praising the Jewish people. And in fact, that's the yesod of the night of Pesach, is about Hakaras HaTov, is recognizing all the good that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does for us, recognize all the good that people do for us. And in fact, that's why the Vilna Gaon points out, we find the number 4 throughout the Haggadah. The 4 children, the 4 cups of wine, the 4 questions. What does number of 4 represent? So the Vilna Gaon writes, this number 4 represents, there's a bracha called Birkas HaGomel. Birkas HaGomel is a blessing we make when we're saved from a dangerous situation. And Chazal, our rabbis, give us specific orders, specific things. It applies in general, but they give specific ones. People who are chola and they got better, Yisurim, they're in danger and they got better, they crossed through a desert, they crossed through a sea. So we make a Birkas HaGomel. So on Pesach night, the Yitzias Mitzrayim, all the Jews through all 4, they went through the Midbar, they went through the sea, they were like in Egypt and in jail, and they were cholim. It commemorates what the Jews did in Mitzrayim. That's the Birkas HaGomel. And therefore, that's what the night of Pesach is all about, Hakaras HaTov, and that's what the world was created for, B'Yisrael, HaTorah and Nikaras Reishis, that Hakaras HaTov is the foundation for the world. And in fact, that's why in our davening we have a private Shmoneh Esrei, and we also have a public one. We have a Shliach Tzibur. So it's interesting when the Shliach Tzibur repeats the davening, so he repeats everything, except there's one part of davening, one part of the Shmoneh Esrei, the congregation does themselves. And that is Modim Anachnuach. In other words, there are different parts to the Shmoneh Esrei. There's the Shevach, the praise, there's the Bakasha, the request, and the thank you. So when you're saying thank you, it has to be done by yourself. You don't send a shliach. So when we're thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's what the Avid Drum points out. That's why by Modim, and that's why many examples throughout with Bikurim, Mikra Bigurim, which we read at Arami Ovid Avi. It's the cornerstone of the Haggadah because it's all about Hakaras HaTov, and therefore we recognize, as the Kedushas Halevi points out, we recognize the good, not the bad, because it's human nature to always point out the negatives, and it's usually counterproductive. Baseball season's coming up, so I'll give you a baseball parable. That there was this pitcher, Jim Cat, I'm not sure, Hall of Famer or All-Star pitcher, and one time he was interviewed, and he wanted to know, what was the key to your success? How did you become a successful major league pitcher? He says, you know what? It goes back to my rookie year when I came into training camp. If I recall correctly, his pitching coach was Mel Stoudemire, or who happened to pitch for the Yanks or Mets. So he was a pitching coach, and so the pitching coach said to Jim Katz, he said, "So tell me, what's your best pitch, or how many pitches do you have? What's your best pitch?" Well, I have a very good fastball, have a decent curveball, and I have a very weak slider, knuckleball, etc. Okay. So which pitch are you going to work on in spring training? So he says, I guess I'll work on my curveball, my knuckleball. So he said, you got it all wrong. The pitches that you're going to make it through in the majors is your fastball. Your fastball is your bread and butter. You focus on your fastball, perfect the fastball, and you'll be able, of course, work on all of them, but the focus will be on the fastball because that's the pitch that's going to get you through, and then you build up a little bit on the accessories. Same thing here, the night of Pesach, and all year round we're trying to focus on the good. And it's human nature, whether it's with our children or with anyone else, the Arba Banim, many parents always see the negative in their children, and not the positive. And that's why we say actually, Baruch HaMakom Baruch Hu. What's the language? Makom, like HaMakom Yinachem, or HaMakom Yerachem, or Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael. HaMakom is always some type of a hester panim, that there's a tragedy, there's a sad thing, someone's sick, someone died. So HaMakom, with our children and stuff, there's always some hester panim we don't understand. There's Pinach Habanim, Habanis is so difficult. So we're praying to God, that we get done, we have the Siyata de Shemaya. And that's what we do the night of Pesach. We show our Hakaras HaTov. And to conclude, that's Rav Soloveitchik and Rav Kook elaborated on it. How do we begin the Seder? Well, Rav Soloveitchik pointed out we begin the Seder with Halach Ma'anja called Difchin Yetze V'Yelcho. We invite all our guests in to eat. So, it's nice to invite all your guests in to eat. It's a little late now, but we really invited them before. But why on Pesach? Why now? So Rav Soloveitchik pointed out, because tonight's Derech Eretz, how does one show their freedom? By you control your own destiny. Masha kana Eved kana Rabo. Eved doesn't control his own time, and therefore he can't invite people. Or you control your own time, your freedom. What do you do with your freedom? You go ahead and you invite guests. And that's what Rav Kook elaborated on as well. He said, why do we have the karpa? So we know yachatz, we wash our hands, the whole discussion, what with or without a bracha. No, well, we paskin, we have no bracha, and different minhagim who washes. But Rav Kook elaborated on what's the connection between the yachatz and the Leil Seder. So Rav Kook explains, because what do we do things the night of Pesach? We do it Zecher, and then the Tziv explains, we do it Zecher. We want to bring back Zecher and Mikdash, remember the good old days. We wear a kittel, we wash our hands, we say Loshana Haba B'Yushalayim. So what's one of the things we want to do tonight, Rav Kook points out, is a sign of a free person, is the one who has the ability to dream. When you're a slave and there is no hope, dreaming doesn't get you anywhere. In fact, you get more depressed. You're stuck in a jail. You dream about the time when you're not getting out. However, when it comes to a free person, they have the ability to dream, because, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a person could do whatever they want. So we dream that one day soon, that Mimheira Yibana Beis HaMikdash, and we're all going to be back with the kittel, washing the ritual washing, as well as Loshana Haba, because even in Yerushalayim they say Loshana Haba, because we still don't have a temple up. And that's the connection, that on the night of Pesach, the Yisod, we have to have the Hakaras HaTov. It's not, we call it Pesach, God calls it Chag HaMatzos. As the Vilna Gaon explains, the whole Seder is based on Birkas HaGomel. It's one big Birkas HaGomel. It's one big Sudas Hodah, and that's what we do at our meal. As Rav Soloveitchik, we invite people in. That shows our freedom. And similarly, as Rav Kook points out, the sign of a free person dreams, and we always dream that things will get better, and next year, we should all end up in Yerushalayim, Era Kodesh, etc. B'meira v'yameinu. The Mishnah in the beginning of Arvei Pesachim, the last parak in Pesachim, Mesechus Pesachim, deals largely with the laws of the Seder. It begins with other halachas of Kiddush in general, Kiddush b'makam Suda, and then it goes to, that came before the Haggadah. Most of the Haggadah, the framework is based on the last parak in Arvei Pesachim. So in the first Mishnah, it says, everyone is obligated in 4 cups of wine. Lo yifsachu lo me'arba kosos. You can't have less than 4 cups of wine. So Tosfos over there raises an interesting question. Tosfos raises who exactly is obligated in having the 4 cups of wine on the night of Pesach. Because we know all year round when we make Kiddush, so does everyone have to drink from the cup of wine? Does everyone have their own cup and then they drink on their own, or does one person make Kiddush for everyone? We know the halacha is, the Gemara in Erevin tells us, Daf Mem Vav, HaMevarach Sarech Sheyitom. The one who makes Kiddush has to drink from the kosher bracha. And so lichatchila, the best choice is he should drink the requisite amount himself. But secondly, if he can't do it himself, he's not up to it, he doesn't like the wine or whatever it might be, he could give it to one other person there that they should drink the requisite amount. And if that doesn't work, shtiyas kulan mistarfin. If you give everyone a little shot glass and everyone drinks enough, that works also. So lechatchila, the one from the Kiddush, the one making the Kiddush should drink the requisite amount. But b'diavad, as long as the requisite amount is drank by everyone, it works. So the luck is all year round by Kiddush, people have a hiddur. Shabbos morning might be a little different according to the briskers. That might just be a din bori priagafen and din in birkas hanenin. So if you're going to be machmer in one area, if you're only going to drink from the wine of Kiddush once, according to the briskers, you should do it Shabbos morning, because that you might have to drink. But we don't paskin that way either. But we paskin really in both Kiddush. We assume it's a birkas hamitzvah, and therefore, as long as the Makadish drinks, it's a nice hiddur for people to drink from the Kiddush cup, but there is no obligation. So is that any different on Leil Pesach? And as the Tosfos writes, Maishna Kiddush mi Leil Pesach kol hashana, Maishna Leil Pesach mi Kiddush kol hashana. Tosfos suggests there is no difference Leil Pesach than all year round. This is like all year round, you listen to someone's Kiddush and they drink, you watch them drinking, it works. So too, he says perhaps Leil Pesach as well. There has to be 4 cups, but you don't have to drink him. You could watch the guy, you could watch the balabas drink the 4 cups, and you are home free.
Shouldn't you be talking about just the Kiddush, or all 4, all the occasions where you drink?
All 4 cups I'm talking. Because then, each boy priyagafen. So therefore, the same hamavarach sarach shayitam, the one who's running the Seder, the one who's making the brachas, they'll drink and it'll work. However, it's working. Shomaya Kaona, whichever principle is applying here. However, it works every Friday night, Tosfos says. It should work the night of Pesach as well, on all 4 cups.
It's even a kasha, though, according to the Sfarim, who don't say a new bracha for every kos.
Yeah, we'll get to the Sfarim soon. Yeah.
Okay.
So therefore, that's this cheat. Albeit Tosfos seems to back out of it at the end, but we'll just call it cheat to Tosfos anyway. Even though at the end of the day he seems to back down, but Tosfos Shita seems to be, at least in the Havamina, that one person makes the brachas and drinks the 4 cups, and that's it. However, the Rambam, Maimonides, disagrees, and the Rambam writes it's a chova shti on everybody. It's not, even though all year round everyone agrees to Kiddush. It's not a machlokas by Kiddush. Everyone agrees by Kiddush only hamavarach sarach sheyitom. However, by the Daled Kosas, the Rambam says it's different. Everybody has to drink their own cup. Men, women, children, they all have to drink their own cup. So it seems to be a fundamental machlokas between the Rambam and the Bali Tosfos on whether everyone has to drink their own cup. According to Tosfos, it's no different than all year round, no. And according to Rambam, Yes. What is the Nekudas HaMachlokas? What is the issue at hand between the Rambam and the Bali Tosfos, and whether everyone has to drink or one person? So the Brisker Rav explains, and others, on how do we view the Chiyuv of Dalet Kosas. The Torah, the Gemara never actually talks about, we talk about 4 cups. It doesn't get into the details of the nature of the 4, the different sources. The Yerushalmi, others bring down why we have 4 cups, why the number 4. But we know there are 4, but it never really goes into explicitly the nature of the drinking of the 4 cups. So the Brisker Rav explains there's a fundamental machlokes. The Rambam Shita is there's a chovash shtiyah, that the mitzvah of the 4 cups is you have an obligation to drink 4 cups. While Tosfos is learning, it's like Kiddush all year round, it's a chovas bracha. There's an obligation that Chazal set up over 4 places of the Haggadah that you make a bor pri hagafen, it's a chovas bracha ala kos, and therefore you make a bor pri hagafen, but there's no chiyuv to drink. Obviously drinking's incidental, just like on Kiddush. Of course, someone has to drink, but once you make a bor pri hagafen, so it's covered a kos, or whatever the reason you have to drink. But it's not, fundamentally, Tosfos is learning it's a chovas bracha, and drinking's incidental. Well, according to the Rambam, the chovas shtiyah, the chovas, that is the chiyuv. So that's how the Brisker Rav explains. And in fact, this machlokes, and we'll get to Svarim in a minute, they have some middle shita, this seems to be tied into another machlokes leil Pesach. And the question is, assuming you have to drink, how much do you have to drink? So how much do we have to drink all year round, and how much do we have to drink leil Pesach? So let's say on a typical classical Friday night, so there's 2 parts to the question. How big does the cup have to be, and how much do you have to drink? So Friday night, the halacha is the cup has to at least hold a revius. A revius, how much is a revius? So on a biblical mitzvah, we're strict that it should be like 4.2 ounces. Minimally, it could be more. The cup should be at least 4.2 ounces. Kiddush Friday night is deraisa. But on a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, like Pashas Kiddush on Yontif, might only be d'Rabbanan, it only has to hold 3.3 ounces. The shaila is when Pesach falls out on Friday night, so then maybe the first cup might be a deraisa, but that's not an issue this year. So it has to, the cup has to be anywhere between 3.3 and 4.2 ounces. That's how big the cup has to be normally on a Kiddush Friday night. And how much do you have to drink? You have to drink a row revius, which means so let's assume the cup. Let's assume a revius is 4 ounces. So you have to drink a little over 2 ounces. So all year round, Friday night Kiddush, you have to have a cup that holds a revius, and you have to drink rov revius. So we assume also it's irrelevant how big your cup is. You could have one of those big beer mugs. You could have a 50-ounce cup, but the luck is you only have to drink rov revius. However, the Ramban Shita is no. You have to be careful. He says you got to drink. He says it's rov. You got to drink rov of the cup. So according to, we don't pass like the Ramban, so we don't have to worry about it. So regarding Kiddush all year round, it doesn't make a difference how big the usual Kiddush cup is, unless you're looking for an excuse to drink more. But assuming you're looking for the minimum, not the maximum. So the halacha is, as long as you drink a little over 2 ounces, and again, preferably you, but as long as everyone drinks a total of 2 ounces, you fulfill 2.1 ounces, whatever the amount is, then you fulfill your mitzvah of Kiddush. So that's, in contrast, Shabbos morning is a different shayla. We're familiar with the custom of people using shot glasses. People make Kiddush over schnapps. What's the story with that? Well, that's a whole different shir. But simply speaking, the Magen Avram doesn't like it. The Magen Avram says for 2 reasons. Number one is he says you need a cup for Kiddush also or a revius. So perhaps you could put schnapps, fill up the whole Kiddush cup. That's one issue. There's one issue of chamar, wine versus schnapps, but there's another issue. The Magen Avram is focusing on the size. However, the minhag ha'olam is to rely on the Taz. The Taz says, because since that's always the nature of drinking, schnapps is only a shot glass, and therefore he says that's considered chashav, and therefore you have what to rely on. L'chatchila, you should go with the Magen Avraham, but the Minhag Olam, the people rely on, so you have the Taz to rely on. So getting back to Friday night, the halacha is, as long as you only have to drink Rov Revius. However, so that's the sheet of Tosas. Tosas says same thing, Leil Pesach. You only need Rov Revius. Not only that the one person who's drinking the cup, he only has to drink a little more than a Revius. So if it's 3.3, you don't have to drink much. The Rambam holds you need Rov Kos. Well, the Rambam holds the Chachila, you need the full cup. And B'di'evet, we say Ruva Kukulo, over 50% is considered like the whole thing, and therefore it's okay. So the Brisker Rav points out these two disputes between the Rambam and Tosfos are Lishitasan. The Rambam who holds the mitzvah on Pesach night is to drink the cup of wine. It's a Chova Shtiya, so you have to drink a cup. So a cup, you got to drink the whole cup. And B'di'evet, if you drink 51%, you're okay. But and according to Tosfos, the mitzvah is not drinking the cup. The mitzvah is a Chova's bracha. It's a mitzvah to make a bracha during 4 parts of the Seder, like it is on Kiddush every Friday night. And therefore the normal halachas of bracha or kos apply. You only have to drink a Rov Revius. So we seem to, so the Svardim, as some Svardim, as Jason pointed out, they have a middle ground somewhere. Everyone agrees to drink 4 cups the night of Pesach, but some Svardim only make 2 brachas. In other words, they only make a bracha by Kiddush. That covers them until the meal. And then for benching, they make a bracha. So they only make 2 brachas. Why? What's the machlokas Ashkenaz Sfard regarding making 4 brachas, 4 Boer Pri Hagafen tonight of Pesach, which is, my minute, the minig Ashkenaz. It's not all Sfardim. Some Sfardim only make 2. So that's a Hilchas brachas issue. That's an issue regarding hefsek, interruption. Pashish, if you go by the simple rules of hefsek, the Sfardim are right. In other words, why do we need another bracha? In other words, I guess it depends how long your Sipur Yizayim goes, it depends how long your Haggadah goes. We do have a Chatzos limit on it, so therefore, but because normally, as long as you're sitting there talking about the Seder, so therefore they hold you don't have to make another bracha. You have to drink because there is a chiyuv of 4 cups, but you only have to make a bracha. You only have to make a bracha twice, and we assume out dini hefsek you don't need a bracha, but Chazal instituted it's an independent mitzvah at 4 times during the Seder for the Kiddush, for the Magid, for the Berchas Hamatzim, for the Hallel, a separate independent mitzvah. Chazal set up, you should make 4 brachas at 4. So dini hefsek we agree, but we say for a different reason. So our minig, we seem to combine Shitas HaTosfos and Shitas HaRambam. What do I mean? Because we do both. We make a bracha on the 4 parts of the Seder, and we all have to drink the 4. So we seem to go l'chuvra. We seem to accept the sheet because the Sfardim only make 2 brachas. Obviously, they go with the chova shtiya. They go purely according to the Rambam. You wouldn't need 4 brachas because it's a chova shtiya. So I don't have to make a bracha each time. I have to drink 4 cups of wine. So we seem to combine both because we make a bracha on the 4 cups and we drink. So that's the way we assume. We assume that l'chatchila, that we assume like the Rambam, everyone has to drink, not just the one who's making the Kiddush. And we assume l'chatchila you have to drink the whole cup, but b'di'evet rov, because that's why it's important that one should use a cup which is a normal size. It has to be at least a revi'ah. So if you get a cup like 3.5 ounces, so it's much more doable to finish the cup all 4 times. And if you use the right wine as well, so that's why it's best to use a cup, because some people have these like 20-ounce cups and they might drink 3 or 4 ounces, but they're not drinking Rov Kos. So, b'di'evet, yet you're relying on the Bali Tosfos, but we passing like the Rambam, you have to drink the whole cup. So therefore, that's why it's best to get a cup which is in normal. Don't get it more than 4 ounces, because then you can. I'm saying, but then you just have to drink more, and as you get to the 3rd, you might have a harder time finishing the Seder properly, that is. So that's so we combine. So therefore we pointed out. So you have to paskin. You have to everyone, even though you don't have to make the boy priya. For the boy priya gafen, for the kiddush, you can listen to the head of the seder. He can make the kiddush. He can make. You don't have to make your own priya gafen. You could be listening to it and answer amen. Shemaya Kaona works on the bracha. However, but everyone has to drink. Everyone has to drink their own cup. They have to drink, preferably the whole cup, at least rov revius. And we'll have to get to next time. Chazal weren't just concerned about how much you drink; they were concerned in the matter you're drinking. And we'll see that on the night of Pesach, one will have to drink the 4 cups b'haseba, reclining on the left-hand side. It's also part of the obligations. It's not only the yayin, but matzah v'yayin sarach haseba, marach ein sarach haseba. Regarding those halachas, we'll need reclining. We'll have to continue next time. The Gemara tells us in Arvei Pesachim, matzah sarach haseba, marar ein sarach haseba. On the night of the Pesach Seder, one of the mitzvahs we'll see is to recline. And the Gemara says when you eat the matzah, one has to recline when they eat the matzah, but not when they eat the marar. And the Mefarshim explain because reclining is something derech cheres, is a reflection of freedom and not slavery. So matzah, even though it has a dual connotations, but now at this point of the Seder, we're eating the matzah to represent our freedom. We left in haste from Egypt, and the matzah couldn't turn into bread. The matzah represents freedom, so we recline, and maror we don't. And then the Gemara has a discussion, what about wine? When you drink the 4 cups of wine, does that require haseba or not? So the Gemara goes through 2 different opinions. One opinion is the first 2 cups require haseba, and the second opinion is the last 2 cups require haseba. And the Gemara gives different reasons for each of the opinions. And since it says the machlokes, the Gemara concludes, ID by haseba. The Gemara concludes, since we have a dispute whether it's the first 2 or the last 2, what the heck, let's recline on all 4. So therefore, that's the Gemara's conclusion. So matzah and yayin we recline, and mara we don't recline. So there's a machlokas Tosfos in the Rambam. How integral is haseba to the mitzvah of matzah, and for that matter, the mitzvah of wine? Like, what do you mean? So it's nice to recline? But what happens if you eat the matzah and don't recline, or if you drink the wine and don't recline? So the Rosh's opinion is, the Rosh quotes the Gemara also in Arvei Pesachim, a waiter, the Gemara talks about, who eats his matzah below haseba without reclining. The Gemara says you're not yotze. So from there the Rambam says, we see from here, haseba is integral to the mitzvah, and therefore you have to do it over. And the other Rishonim say the Rambam learns the Gemara differently. The Rambam learns haseba is a general mitzvah. Like you should recline the whole meal. It's nothing to do with any specific mitzvah during the meal. There's a general mitzvah of reclining. And Masha from the Rambam, if you eat the matzah without reclining, just keep on going. I mean, there's nothing to do. What's the machlokas, the Rambam versus the Bali Tosfos? The Tosfos is mesupik, and the Rosh is whether haseba is integral to the mitzvah of matzah. Just like the rabbis are concerned how much you drink, they're concerned in the manner of you drink it as well. And the Rambam writes, no, haseba is an independent mitzvah. You should recline all the time. If you don't recline, it's nothing to do with the matzah. In fact, that's how he learns the Gemara. When it says the waiter eats the matzah and doesn't recline, the matzah he fulfilled, but it's reclining he didn't fulfill. That's how he learns the Gemara. So it's a fundamental machlokes. So since it's a mitzvah d'oraisa, we try to be machmir, and we try to make sure that we recline. There's 2, we eat matzahs different times during the meal. The matzah in the beginning, the matzah at the end. And it's a discussion, if the bottom line, someone because of illness could only eat 1 kizayis, so we assume you probably save it for the end, for the afikomen, and you do it then. But all things being equal, we're usually more strict on the first and last. The korech already is we're less strict on in terms of how much one should eat. But in general, we'll get into shiurim another time, but that's the machlokas, the Rambam and the Rush, on whether reclining is integral to the mitzvah or not. What about wine? So we said wine was a dispute. So Tosfos makes a compromise. Tosfos writes, the first 2 cups you have to go back for, and the last 2 cups you don't go back for. What's the difference? Like why the first 2 cups you go back and not the last 2? So it's more of a technical issue than a fundamental issue. Because the halacha is, during the first 2 cups, strictly speaking, you're allowed to eat. In other words, in the first cup you just made kiddush. So in theory you made kiddush and we eat the karpas after. So in theory one is allowed to eat something after they make the kiddush. The minhag is we don't. We just eat the karpas and do the seder. But strictly speaking, especially if there's a need, one's permitted to eat something. So and also during the second cup. So really, if you drank the cup and didn't recline, so you're allowed to drink another cup. You're allowed to drink wine during the seder. So we say to go ahead and drink another cup and recline. But the last 2 cups anyway, we know once we eat the afikomen, you're not supposed to eat anything after the afikomen. And the last 2 cups come after the afikomen. So since in general the minhag is not to eat anything, so therefore we're not going to be strict. So in the first 2 cups they bring down, one could go back and drink another cup reclining. But the last 2 cups, you wouldn't have to. So that's the discussion over there in the Gemara. There's a famous kasha of the Ran. The Ran asks on the Gemara says, if it's a shaila, do we recline on the first 2 cups, the last 2 cups? The Gemara says we don't know, so we recline on all 4 cups. So we have, the Ran says this goes against our general principle we have. The Gemara tells us in many places, Safek daraisa l'chumra, a doubt regarding a biblical law was strict on, and Safek d'Rabbanan l'kula, a doubt regarding a rabbinic law were lenient. So Haseba is a rabbinic mitzvah. So we have a rule, Safek d'Rabbanan l'kula. So the Gemara should have concluded something else. But it should have concluded, well, if I don't recline, I don't have to go back on either of the cups. Instead, the Gemara comes to the opposite conclusion, that since it's a dispute, we're not sure, let's recline on all 4. That goes against our general rule of Safek d'Rabbanan l'kula. So the Ran gives 2 answers. One answer he gives is, he likes the second answer better in terms of lamdis. The first answer he just says is, you're right. Safek d'Rabbanan l'kula, you don't have to go back. Whether you forgot to recline on the first 2, the last 2, you don't have to go back. It's only, but when do we say Safek d'Rabbanan l'kula? That's when it's not a big deal. If it's a big tircha, if it's a big burden, you have to go travel a couple of miles back, or it's a big thing to do something, then we tell you to be lenient. But if it's not a big deal, and in fact people might enjoy it, drinking another cup of wine, so then what's the big deal? Just take another cup and drink. You drink all the time. So that's what
because reclining is supposed to be a pleasure, in fact. It's permitting you to do something which you're not normally allowed to do because it's a pleasurable thing. So therefore, being lenient is allowing you to do it on all 4.
Right, that's the Ran's first answer. You're right, that it's no big deal. You should go back, but you don't have to. That's what the A1 is. A2 is saying a more fundamental answer. We can't say Safek d'Rabbanan l'kula here. We can't say a doubt on a rabbinic law will lenient. Why not? We usually do say it. Why is it different here? So so the Ran writes, and the Beis Halevi was asked a similar question. He quoted this Ran. It was in the papers, years ago, probably in the, I don't know, whenever. There was an article, I think it was once printed in one of the Israeli papers, in terms of someone who asked the Beis Halevi that Bisman Hazeh, I get part of the car also. Bisman Hazeh, that today that Chumas Amaisa Shemitah is only D'Rabbanan, and so we shouldn't have to keep it anymore. Why? Because 2 reasons. Number one, two assumptions. Number one is Shemitah is D'Rabbanan today, which we assume, and the second assumption is it's a machlokas among the Rambam, the Gaonim. When is the exact year of Shemitah? Because it's a whole machlokas, the Rambam and the Gaonim. How do we count the Yovel, the Shemitah? Do we go 149 and then go back to 1 again? Or is it 1 to 50? There's a whole discussion, not a new machlokes. The Rambam quotes this is an old machlokes, a major discussion. When is the exact years for the Shemitah? So if someone asks the Beis Halevi, he says, number one is today's Shemitah is only D'Rabbanan. I don't know what year Shemitah is. Maybe it's this year, maybe it's last year, maybe it's next year. So why don't we apply the principle suffix D'Rabbanan L'Kula, a doubt regarding a rabbinic law we're lenient on. So the Beis Halevi said, you clearly haven't learned the Ran in Arvei Pesachim. We're about to learn right now. But that's the Ran's question regarding the Dalit Kosos. So the Ran answers like this. We don't say suffix D'Rabbanan L'Kula. We don't say we're lenient on a rabbinic doubt if it's going to lead to the wrong conclusion, to what he calls a tarte de sastre. Tarte is two, sastre is contradiction. If it's going to lead to the wrong, what do you mean it's going to lead to the wrong result? So let's go see by here. The Gemara says by us, everyone agrees you don't have to recline on all four. The whole machlokas in the Gemara, is that you'll have to recline either on the first two or the last two. So the Ran says if you apply, so he says number one you need a suffix hashakol. Have no reason to pick the first two over the last two, or else maybe I'd say well recline over two and not four. But I have no reason to pick the first two over the last two. It's a suffix hashakol, so I have no right. It's an equal doubt, so I can't pick one over the other. So why do I say let's not recline on any? Suffix D'Rabbanan, it's very simple. I drink the first cup, I didn't recline. Suffix D'Rabbanan L'Kula, and I'll go through the second, third, fourth, and I'll say the same thing. He says if we did that, we'd be coming with the wrong conclusion, because everyone agrees you have to recline at least on 2 out of the 4. If I'm going to apply the principle of suffix D'Rabbanan L'Kula and not recline on any, I'm definitely doing the wrong. So we don't apply suffix D'Rabbanan L'Kula. Same thing here, the Beis Halevi says. It's clear 1 year is Shemitah. We don't know which year. So if every year I'm going to say suffix D'Rabbanan L'Kula on Shemitah, so I'm never going to keep Shemitah, and that's definitely wrong. Everyone agrees you have to keep Shemitah. The question is what year, so hence you can't apply the principle of suffix D'Rabbanan L'Kula. So hence that's what the Ran writes here. That's why the Gemara couldn't conclude, let's not recline at all of suffix D'Rabbanan L'Kula, because we know that would lead us to the wrong conclusion. So that's what so this Ran, he seems to contradict himself in another place. There's regarding Purim, we all know that the most of Klal Yisrael reads the Megillah on the 14th day of Adar, and in Yerushalayim, or the real deal is that any walled city from the time of Yoshua ben Nun, they read on the 15th. Why Yoshua ben Nun? Why not? Because we want to give covet to Eretz Yisrael, because at that point it wasn't a walled city, and therefore we don't want to give more covet to Shushan or some other city than Yerushalayim. So we give covet Yerushalayim, we go by the time of Yoshua ben Nun. So what happens? You're a suffix Muchvus Cham Yeshua ben Nun. Let's say you don't know if you're a walled city for the time of Yeshua, but there are different cities in. So Yerushalayim is clear, but there are different cities on the outskirts. There's a discussion even Bisman Hazeh, which places are included, which isn't. So what do you do if you're a town? It doesn't necessarily have to be in Yerushalayim. I don't think anywhere else we consider a suffix anymore. But wherever the hypothetical is, you're a suffix Muchus Chami Yeshua ben Nun. So what do you do? So the Rambam writes, it's a suffix, so it's a machlokes among the Rishonim. Some Rishonim say, okay, so you do the 14th and the 15th. Since you're not sure, so therefore you read the Megillah on both the 14th and the 15th. And the Ran writes, no, you just read on the 14th. So besides the logic behind it, it seems to be a steer in the Ran, because the Ran just finished saying we had a machlokes regarding the Dalit Kosos. Which one should you recline on, the first two or the last two? So the Ran said, what about suffix D'Rabbanan L'Kula? But the bottom line, the Gemara said, what? You recline on all four. So you had a doubt on the Dalit Kosos, he said you go L'Chumrah. Yet when it came to reading the Megillah on a walled city, a suffix walled city, he says, to be consistent, he would have said, you should read on all, we're not sure, so read on the 14th and the 15th, because we don't want to say suffix D'Rabbanan L'Kula, and you won't read on the 14th. How come when it comes to Kriyas Megillah, the Ran says you only read on the 14th. Yet when it comes to Haseba, reclining on Leil Pesach, he says you read on the 14th and the 15th. How do we reconcile this apparent contradiction in the Ran? So the Mishnah Lamelech, one of the commentators on the Rambam, he explains as follows. He says, because it's a fundamental difference. It's two different questions. The questions regarding Haseba and the questions regarding the wall city. Why is it different? It's different for many reasons, but the one reason we'll focus on is as follows. The case of Haseba, we're trying to set up a future halacha l'doros, a future halacha for everyone. We want to know, what is everyone in Klal Yisrael going to do? Comes to the Seder, what should we do? So we're setting up a halacha that's going to, if I would have came out and said, you don't have to recline anymore, Savik Rabban and Lakua, there wouldn't be any reclining left. No one would ever recline again. I'm setting up a future halacha for everyone. In the case of Purim, the halacha is set up. We all know the rules. If you live in a walled city during Yeshua ben Nun, you're reading on the 15th. If you're reading in a non-walled city, that's a given. That's happening. So there'll always be someone reading on the 14th and the 15th. Here we're dealing with the local question on this specific town. How should I be? So the Ran says, I don't have to worry. So for this specific town, I could say Savik Rabban. It's not going to affect anybody. Savik Rabban and Lakula. We're going to read this on the 14th on the Savik, but it's not going to affect Klal Yisrael. Regarding the Haseba question, that reflects to everyone, and therefore that's why the Ran, when it came to Savik Rabban and Lakula, by Haseba, we had to recline on by all of them, and therefore that's the distinction. So let's summarize. So we discussed the issue of Haseba. So the Gemara said, Mara Sarach Haseba, Matzah Sarach Haseba, Marach Ein Sarach Haseba. Matzah requires reclining, Mara doesn't. Korach, the minig is you do, but if you don't have to go back. It's only a drabanan or a minig. But Matzah, we go back. So it's a machlokes, the Rush and the Rambam, whether and Tosas is Mesupah, whether one eats matzah and doesn't recline, do you have to go back and eat another piece of matzah? The Rush writes yes, the Rambam says no. What's the issue? The issue is whether the mitzvah Haseva is part and parcel of the mitzvah of matzah. Like this, like Chazal are concerned by how much I drink, they're concerned in the matter I drink it. Well, no, it's an independent mitzvah, like the Rambam writes. You should be reclining the whole Seder. Of course, you should recline during the mitzvahs, but not limited to that. And that seems to be the issue of Tosfos. So by matzah u'machmir, then one should try to make sure you should recline before you eat the matzah, else you might have to eat some more matzah. And by Mara, we don't recline. By Yayin, it's a machlokas, the first two cups, the last two cups. We conclude that you should recline by the Yayin. But Lamaisa, you only have to go back on the first two, since you're allowed to eat during the first two cups. So if you remember, you should go back. And during the last two cups, since it's an Isser to eat after the Afikomen, and since it's a Shiloh, you have to go back on that. So then we'll make on the last two cups, and we'll machmer on the first two cups. Leil Seder, there is a minhag for some have a minhag, some have a custom of wearing a kittel. A kittel, a white gown. As we'll see, there's as a minhag as well. Some wear it during the Yomim Noraim, and some specifically on Yom Kippur. Others, when they daven, the Bali Tefillah wear it for Rosh Hashanah. And different minhagim, some have a minhag to wear it Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. But the classical minhag Ashkenaz, or for most, is that on Yom Kippur, many wear it, and as well as Leil Pesach at the Seder, many have a custom to wear a kittel. So what is, and as we'll see, there's some who have a custom that everyone at the Seder, all men at the Seder, all married men or men wear a kittel at the Seder. And others have a custom that the head of the household wears a kittel. So what are those different minhagim based on? So the Taz writes that one of the reasons behind the kittel Leil Seder is it's going to yaskir Yom Hamisa. That since we're bringing out all the china, we're bringing out all the good food, all the special things, so therefore not to go overboard, we wear a kittel to remind us of we're not going to be here forever, as I think the Rabbi used to say, just remember, when he used to take off his kittel after the Seder, just remember there'll be a time where we won't be able to take off our kittel. And he meant achar misa, once a person dies and put into a kittel, you can't take it off. So we have to remember, Yaske Yom HaMisa, we have this in other areas as well. There's also a minhag that isn't as popular as it used to be. In yeshivas, they still do it. They say there's Bahab. Bahab is Monday, Thursday, and Monday after the Yom Tovim. It used to be a day of tainus. Today, I don't know if anyone who, maybe there are some, I don't know of any who fast, but they do slichas. And in fact, in theory, when they fasted, they had their own Kriyas HaTorah. So what's the concept of a Bahab? Again, it's the same concept that right after the Yom Tovim, we were involved in simcha, drinking, so to make sure we didn't go overboard, we want to do a little tshuva, we say some slichas. So similarly here, this isn't after, this is during, since we're so excited, we're so besimcha during Leil Seder, so we want to balance ourselves, put things in perspective, and wear a kittel. Others say it's the opposite, that we wear a kittel because we're so happy. In other words, kittel represents simcha. That it's like on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur we wear white. White's a time of purity. When a person's forgiven for their sins, it's a time of simcha. Yom Kippur is the happiest day on the Jewish calendar. It's not Tisha B'Av. And therefore, Yom Kippur we wear a kittel. So to it, we wear a kittel. It's a time of joy and simcha, like the Gemara talks about in the end of Moed Katan by Tu B'Av, or the end of Tainus. By Tu B'Av, Yom Kippur and Tu B'Av are the two happiest days of the year. And we all know about Yom Kippur. What happened on Tu B'Av? Many things happened, but the Gemara then quotes a minhag that people used to go out in white. The women used to go in white. It's Shiduchim. So we see white is related to Simcha. The Vilna Gaon writes the white reminders of the Karbanos. The Kohen used to wear the white garments. So we have basically two schools of thought in what is the nature of the custom of wearing a kittel. Either to Yaske Yom HaMisa, or is it because of the Simcha? It represents Simcha. My nafkamina, what's the practical difference? Either way, we're going to go, and those who have the minhag to wear a kittel will continue, and those who don't won't. So my nafkamina. So perhaps they mention two possibilities. One is, let's say someone who is an Avel. You're an Avel, you're Beis Chodesh, you're an Avelos, wherever Avelos you're in. And even though we don't have Avelos on Yontif, but you're an Avel, so therefore, if the whole reason, people, you could argue it either way, but you could argue it that since you're an Avel anyway, so you're not going to get overjoyed with Simcha, so therefore, you don't need to Yaske Yom HaMisa. You already have a real death that you're thinking about to keep things in perspective. Or you could taina, if it's out Avelis, then dafka you're an Avelis, you should be wearing a kittel. You get, to add a reminder of an Avelis. So, but Pashas, some say that if you're Avel, there's no need for a kittel. But if the issue is Simcha, so then maybe even though you have a mitzvah Simcha Yantiv, so then you should do it because there is no Avelos on Yantiv. Others point out the different minhagim, that if you only wanted to Seder wearing a kittel, that's okay, but if you're doing a Seder with everyone else, and everyone else is wearing a kittel, and you're not, they get into the issue of Avelos Befahesia, whether it's public mourning or not. Like they discussed, the Vilna Gaon was against, for Shabbos Chazon, singing the niggin of Eicha, because he felt there was Avelos Befahesia. And it says, whether that is or not, that's a discussion. The minhag always seems to be that we do it. Different shul do it. The issue of Shabbos Chazon, wearing big day Shabbos, big day Chol, so that ties on that issue. So one potential nafkamina would be an Avel, whether Avel he doesn't need to wear because he already has balance, and out Simcha, so he's chayiv in the midst of Simcha because there's no Avelos on Yontif, or no public Avelos on Yontif. Anyway, and another difference people bring down is Chasan Shana Rishona. Someone who just got married the first year, besides you always have to be B'Simcha, but the first year there's a special Indian of Simcha. So what about a chassan? So again, some say that there are different minhagim. So if it's, so if it's the Asker Yom HaMisa, some say, well, the first day you don't have to, you're getting used to it, it's al simcha, you don't need it already. So the different schools of thought, different minhagim, but this could tie in as well to the minhag of a kittel. We say some wear a kittel, everyone wears. If it's a real din, depending on the different reasons. If it's just to do things like on Pesach, we do things kadesh yishal tinokos, to get the kids to ask questions. It's more of a hecker, so then it's enough that one person makes the hecker, just like we discussed by karpas. If the whole purpose of the karpas is to get the kids to ask questions, only one person has to wash. But if it's a real din of Netilas Yadayim, if it's a din of kittel, that it's whether it's Yaska Yom HaMisa, a din of Simcha, so then everybody at the table should be wearing a kittel. So those are perhaps the different minhagim and some of the practical differences, and what is the nature of the minhag of wearing a kittel.